Hi, Phil Conrad here for Computer Science 156. It's Wednesday, May 11th, 2022, and this is the next in a series of videos to help prepare you for TEAM 03. In this video, we're going to focus on getting complete test coverage for our index page. So let me share my screen, and I want to show you what happens right now when we run the npm run coverage. Let me just run it again. npm run coverage. Oops, sorry, misspelled. npm run coverage. This is how we check test case coverage for our front-end code. And what we're going to see is that we have a gap with the Dining Commons index page. We have no testing for that. And we also have a little bit of a gap in our Dining Commons table. Now, you might think maybe we should tackle this first, but we're not going to do that, and I'm going to show you why. By the way, the test case coverage report can be found in a directory called coverage. If I open up coverage and then lcov report index.html, I can see the detailed report. If I click on Dining Commons, we'll see that basically there's no coverage for this entire file. It's pretty much all red. But if I go back and look at Dining Commons, we'll see that it's really only the delete function that is actually not covered. And it'll be easier to test to get coverage of this delete function if we run the test from at the page level rather than at the table level. It may not be clear why that's the case now, but hopefully it will become more clear as we go through. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to, let me go ahead and close this coverage report. We're going to focus on the Dining Commons index page. And what we're going to do is we're going to use the UCSB dates index page as a model to write our tests. So I'm going to go under the tests directory, and we'll see that if I compare the main directory, let me close up components. We have components, layouts, pages, utils. And under pages, we have Dining Commons, to-dos, UCSB dates. Down here under our test directory, under pages, we have to-dos and UCSB dates, but we don't have a directory for Dining Commons. So I will add a directory for Dining Commons. And this is what you'll need to do for your database record. You'll add a directory for it under pages. And then under UCSB dates, I have a UCSB dates index page. I'm going to copy and paste that into Dining Commons, and I will rename that to Dining Commons index page test. So let's now look at this code. The first line here, fire event, render, and wait for, comes from the React testing library. And you can read more about those by doing a Google search on React test library. Let me just show that right quick. React testing library, I think it's called. And so you can learn more about all of that by just reading the documentation here. So let me set that aside for now. Query client and query client provider are React. They come from React Query. This is the library that we're using to communicate between the front end and the back end. So that's what React Query is. Memory router is something that we use when we're trying to simulate navigation from page to page. And then UCSB dates index page, that's the component we want to test, but we want to replace that with Dining Commons index page. So we'll replace this with Dining Commons and this with Dining Commons index page. Okay, so continuing, test there. Okay, moving ahead. We have the API current user fixtures. We're going to leave that. The system info fixtures, we're going to leave that. We use these all the time, but these UCSB dates fixtures, we're going to replace that with the Dining Commons fixtures. We're going to replace this with the Dining Commons fixtures. API current user, this is how we simulate who's logged in, whether it's a no one logged in, a plain old user, an admin. System info fixtures is something that we use in the front end to get certain kinds of information from the back end. So we'll leave that for now. We'll come back to that if we need it. Axios is a library that also that we use for communication with the backend. We basically use it to do the HTTP requests. Axios mock adapter is the way that we can simulate those requests. So when we're testing, we don't want to do a real request to the backend because the backend may not even be running. So the mock adapter is how we're going to simulate that. The mock console is going to allow us, if we're doing like console.log or console.error, to capture that input. And if there are errors, we can redirect that input. Like sometimes we might simulate an error. We want to simulate what happens when the backend rejects our request or when the backend is unreachable. When that happens, the lower level library is going to put a bunch of red stuff on the screen. But if we're actually trying to test an error case, we don't want to see that red stuff. So that's what we're going to use mock console for. Mock toast, you may have seen where occasionally there'll be an error and you'll get one of these toast messages or an informational message like when you do something in the app. We want to be able to mock those as well. So not produce a real toast, but check whether the toast would have been produced. So that's what this is about. So let's continue. Our test ID instead of UCSB dates table is going to be dining commons table. This needs to match the test ID. If we go over to our dining commons table, you will see, I believe, that we pass a test ID here into the our table. And what that does, if we look at our table here, if we actually inspect the HTML, you can see that each of these cells has on it a data test ID, and they're all prefixed with dining commons table. This data test ID is simply a way for us when we write tests to say, hey, I want to look at the first row and the fourth column, or I want to look at this header. It's a way of finding things on the page. So that's what that is. That's what that's doing. We set the test ID here and we pass it into the our table component that creates the table. And then we use that test ID, you can see over here, when we write tests. So in this case, we're setting the test ID here. Now we have this setup user only, setup admin user. These are functions that will basically set up the environment so that we are setting it up as if it were a user logged in or an admin user logged in. And you can see that we've basically set this up where the Axios mock is saying, okay, if my front-end component tries to talk to the back-end and it asks for the current user, please respond with the fixture data for a regular user. We also have this system info fixture showing neither. This system info is basically setting up, do we want the Swagger endpoint and do we want the H2 console to show up on the menu bar or not? And we're doing a test where we're showing neither of those. So that's what these two functions are for. Now you see that we're in a test. We're going to set this up as if it's a user that's logged in. And we're going to set it up to say, hey, if you ask for all of the UCSB dates, and here what we want is not UCSB dates, but UCSB dining commons. And we're going to set that up so that when you make that request, it's going to return to us an empty list. So this is going to be a test to make sure that this doesn't crash when you have a regular user and you have an empty list of dining commons. So we'll set this to dining commons index page. And let's go ahead and comment out all of the tests except for that one and see what happens when we try to run that test. So hopefully it will pass. So let's give it a try. Now I think we're going to run into a problem because at this point some of these are actually not being used. So the ones that are gray here, we'll put the underscore in front of those so that they're not creating a problem for us. Let's go ahead and try running npm test and see what happens. Okay, we have one failed test. And that's because it cannot find main pages dining common. We simply misspelled that. This is why I like to run just one test at a time when I'm making one of these. Let's fix that by adding the S. If we had written all the tests first before we tried to run any of them, it would be much harder to find that error. All right, so let's try that again. This time that passes. So good, we got one test passing. Let's continue by uncommenting the next test, and then we'll see what we need to change in here. Renders without crashing for an admin user. Instead of UCSB dates, this should be UCSB dining commons. And this should be dining commons index page. All right, let's try this again. And we'll just hit enter, run all the tests. Those all pass. Good. You can see we have 2 passed tests. So, I'm sorry, that's wrong. We have 2 test suites and 6 passed tests. Hopefully when we uncomment this one, that will go up to 7. So let's uncomment this. Renders 3, not dates, but 3 commons, dining commons, without crashing for regular user. Let's change this to UCSB dining commons because that's our back-end route. And not UCSB dates fixtures, but dining commons fixtures. And let's make sure that dining commons fixtures, we had the underscore in front of that. That's no longer unused, so we will take the underscore away from it. And then let's see, UCSB dates. This should be dining commons index page. Now, this await, wait for. Let's explain what's going on here. You see that inside the parentheses, what I have is I have something called an arrow function. If I pull this out so that you can see it separately, this is what it looks like. A set of parentheses, an arrow, and then a brace with some JavaScript code inside it. This by itself is a function, and what I'm going to do is plop that inside this await, wait for. If I use the await keyword, I have to make sure that my test has async on it. Now notice my test itself is also, the test basically takes a string, which is a label, and then the second parameter is itself an arrow function. There's the open parentheses, the arrow, and then the brace. And all of this is actually an arrow function that I'm passing to the test. What happens when you run the test is it executes this arrow function. What await wait for does is it will continuously execute this arrow function until it actually succeeds. That is, we're expecting this item in the to be in the document and for it to have a certain text content. Now, this is not the right text content for the dining commons. What I'm going to want here is not column ID, but column code, and I'm going to expect it to have text content. I think it's either Ortega or De La Guerra. What we're wanting here is row 0, so the first thing that's in the fixture data. So let's go look at the dining commons fixtures. Oops, Command P, dining commons fixtures. And indeed, the code is De La Guerra. So that is what's going to be in row 0 in the code column. So that is why what we want to see here is actually De La Guerra. And then we expect the column, row 1 column code and row 2 column code. They're going to be the codes that are in this these 3 fixtures. So it should be De La Guerra, Ortega, and then Portola. So let's drop those in. This should be Ortega and Portola. Make sure I got that right. De La Guerra, Ortega, Portola. There we go. All right, and that is this entire test. Now, why do we have this await wait for? It's because when you render a React component, it takes some time to render. And if we don't do wait for here, then we might render this, and while it's rendering, we're testing, and it's not there and the test will fail. So we wait for this, and then if this succeeds, then we're pretty confident the other two will be there as well. Let's try running this test. So looks like this test is failing. So let's see. Wait for is not defined. Ah, that's easy to fix. That's because, remember, we put this underscore on it when it was not being used. I believe that fire event is still not being used, so we will still keep the underscore on it for now. Actually, let me take the underscore away and show you what happens. If we run this, we basically get, okay, so it turns out that the unused component didn't create a problem for us here. But we do have this, the fact that we're not able to find this element, dining commons table, cell row 0 column code. So one thing we can do is we can look and see, is it giving us, all right, we have a different error here, cannot read property for each of undefined. So that is probably, remember that one happens typically when we are passing in the wrong data. And sure enough, let's see, dining commons index page. And I think when we render that, let's see, we are telling it that UCSB dining commons all should have this dining commons fixtures 3 dates. But I wonder if this is the correct route. If it's not, this is not going to work. So let's see what happens when we go over and look at, we can look at our over here to see what route we used. This is UCSB dates index page, so let's not look at that one right now. Let's instead look at our dining commons table test. And let's see, in this one, okay, so this one we're not actually using the route. What we really need is to look at our dining commons table page. So let's look at dining commons index page. And this is the test. So we need the actual dining commons index page itself. So let's find dining commons index page. There we go. Not test. One more time. Here we go. Dining commons index page. And there's the URL, API UCSB dining commons all. And is that where we're getting the, yes, that is where we're getting the data from in the back end. So that is what we would expect. We would need to mock here. Let's just make sure that this matches exactly what we see here. If I paste it in and compare, UCSB dining commons all, yep, that looks correct. So let's see, why is this not working? We're doing this on get, and we're returning dining commons fixtures. And the dining commons index page should therefore be trying to do a get here, and it should be returning with a 200. So let's look at our test output again and see if we can figure out why that is not working. So if we look up here at the top, cannot read property for each of undefined. The above error occurred in our table, and that again is happening here. And that's here at use table, columns, and data. So let's see if we can figure out what is happening there. All right, so if we look at the dining commons index page, what we can see here is that the dining commons table takes the dining commons from here. Dining commons equals dining commons. Let's make sure that this is the correct parameter. If we look at dining commons table, it actually takes, no, that's not right. That's data for our table, but the parameter to dining commons is in fact dining commons. So that is the correct parameter. If we look over here and just make sure that this matches, sorry, here on the dining commons index page, it should be, because it's actually working. So that doesn't seem to be like it seems like it does not seem like it would be the problem. I mean, it's actually working when we try to use it with the back end. So something else is going on here.